In this chapter, we're going to look at how we can export our garment for further editing. I'm going to use ZBrush, but really you can use any application of your choice to go through the next steps. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to convert our mesh to quads. I'm going to select all the patterns, right-click and unfreeze them. Right-click again and choose Remeshing Beta. All right, let's check the wireframe. All good. Next, I'm going to adjust the UVs of the garment. Go to the right corner here and change the simulation mode to UV editor mode. I'm going to right-click on the canvas and choose Fit UV to Unified, 0 to 1. Then select all the islands and scale them up to fill as much UV space as possible. Don't worry about this messiness here. That's just our UVs from the window frame reference object. All right, the UVs look good. Now let's go back to our simulation tab. Select everything except the small piece and go to File, Export, OBJ selected. Just going to quickly make a new folder. Now set the export options to Single Object, Thin, set it on Weld. Make sure the scale is in centimeters. And check this Unified UV coordinate box. Okay. Let's now jump into ZBrush and import our mesh. Click the Import button, navigate to the mesh we've just exported. Left mouse drag it on the canvas and turn on Edit button up here. Let me just quickly assign a brighter material. Now, as you can see, the curtains are not shaded from the other side. We could go ahead and enable the double-sided option here in ZBrush. That would shade it from the other side. However, if the asset is to be used for real-time purposes, you might not be able to apply a double-sided shader, because double-sided shaders are usually inefficient. Often you would need to create some thickness in order for it to be shaded on both sides in a real-time engine. We can quickly add some thickness by using the panel loops feature. So let's see how we can do that. I'm just going to toggle the wireframe to make it a bit easier to see. Go to the Geometry tab. Open up the Edge Loop menu and navigate to the Panel Loop section. Set the polish slider to 0. Enable Regroup Panels and Regroup Loops. Change the elevation to 0. And let's add a thickness value of 0.002. Now hit the Panel Loops button. Let's see what we've got. All right. Perhaps this amount of edge loops is a bit excessive, so I'm going to undo that and change the amount of loops to 2. All right, that might be better. Let's also import our reference meshes. Go to Subtools, hit Append, and choose any of the primitive objects. The primitive is just going to act as a placeholder. Click Import and navigate to the roads file. All right. Now repeat the same steps to import the walls reference file. There we go. Now, I'd like to add some rings on top of the curtains here, similar to those we have in the reference pictures. I'll go ahead and move the curtains down a bit just to make some space for the rings. You can click the Move button or press the W key on your keyboard to move the mesh. Let's see how it looks from the top view. Maybe move it a bit further out, like so. All right, and once you've done positioning the mesh, turn on the Draw button back to exit the Move tool. Now I'm going to import my ring mesh that I've already modeled and set it as an insert mesh to quickly position the rings on the curtains. I'll select a new tool over here. Again, that's just a placeholder to import new meshes on top of. And then I'll import my ring mesh to the scene. Turn off perspective and orient the model the way you want to draw it later. I'll orient it from the side view and click F to frame it in the middle of the canvas. Now select the brush over here and hit the Create Insert Mesh button and choose New. We now have our insert mesh ready to be drawn directly on our curtains. Let's have a look. Select the curtains. And just click and drag to draw the mesh. Now, notice how the orientation of our ring is off. That's because the orientation is affected by the geometry normal that the brush is being drawn on. The normals of our curtains are quite intricate, so instead of drawing directly on the curtain, I'm going to click and drag on the road mesh instead. Use the Move tool to move the ring. Check if the scale is okay. That should work. Now I'm going to select the Move tool again. Hold down the Control key and drag the red axis. That will copy and move our mesh on the X-axis. I'm going to change the pivot of my gizmo to the center of the ring. Just click on this lock operator to unlock the position of the gizmo. That should work. Toggle the lock again, and now I can rotate the ring to give it a slightly different orientation. There we go. I'm going to speed up the video and go through the same process of copying and positioning the rings. All right. If you now press the polyframe button, you can see how all the rings have the same color. That means that they belong to the same polygroup, and we can easily isolate them and split them from the curtains. Make sure that the draw and edit modes are enabled. Hold Ctrl-Shift and click on one of the rings. What this will do is that will hide the curtains. We can now go down to the split section and choose Split Hidden. All right. And that will split the rings from the curtains. Now, if you want to see how we can reuse the same Marvelous Designer file and create some additional curtains, I would really recommend checking our next chapter. That's going to be a time lapse where I'll go through the similar process of adjusting and processing the assets.